Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now today we're taking a look at another Minisforum small form factor PC, this time the HX90G. It's true these tiny systems aren't for everyone, but I just find them fascinating and I think that the popularity of mini PCs will only continue to grow. The HX90G is small in stature and power consumption. It features a 45 watt Ryzen 9 5900HX and Radeon 6600M, which is very similar to the desktop card in terms of specs, except it is more restricted power consumption wise. This specific machine is also spec'd with 16 gigs of 3200MHz dual channel RAM and a 512 gig SSD. It's got plenty of ports including 2 HDMI and 2 display ports, so if you want to use quad 4K displays for whatever reason, you can. I took this to my grandparents over the weekend so that I could make use of the newly installed super fast internet there. I don't know why 80-year-olds need such a speedy connection, but Antiques Roadshow never loaded so fast. Anyway, my point is that moving this thing about is easy and convenient. And while most people will probably keep it in one place most of the time, it's nice to know you can just pick it up in one hand for easy transportation. When you set it down again, it doesn't take up much space in both the upright position with the included stand or lying flat. I don't want this video to sound too much like a sales pitch, so I'm going to balance things out with a couple of perhaps obvious but noteworthy points. Upgradability is more limited with these mini PCs, you can't just swap out the CPU and GPU as you wish, and cost wise it might be possible to build something of equal power with traditional desktop parts, or perhaps shop around for a laptop with similar specs and power. With that said, I feel like anyone looking for one of these is probably aware of the limitations involved. Mini PCs are geared toward a specific market, though on a personal note and as someone who has always been a fan of building my own rig, I've taken to using one of these small form factor systems as my everyday editing and gameplay capture computer. The previously reviewed NUC Xi7. Seriously, I'll probably use this one as a media centre / gaming rig in the living room. It's fascinating to watch little enclosures like this get packed with more and more power. Speaking of which, we should see how this thing actually performs. Cinebench R20 gave us a multi-core score of 5325. I'm more familiar with desktop parts, so that's what I've used as a basis for comparison, and the 5900HX seems to sit somewhere between an Intel i7-10700K and Ryzen 7 5700G. Nice. Single core wise we get 583, which is between a 5700G and 5600X. Again, very solid. Let's test some games and see what the 6600M can do. In Cyberpunk 2077 with the high preset we were averaging over 60 FPS. This is a solid start, and Cyberpunk is usually the game that performs the worst in my benchmark tests due to its very demanding nature, and it's usually a strain on both CPU and GPU. Here it's clear that the 5900HX has more to give and the 6600M is the limiting factor, but just like its desktop counterpart, it is most definitely best suited to 1080p gaming in modern and intensive games like this one. A good start, so let's try Spider-Man next, another fairly new and system-intensive title. Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered performs well. One notable feature of the RDNA 2 6600M, just like its desktop counterpart, is the high boost clock. This thing hits over 2000 MHz no problem, and temperature wise we're doing alright here as well. Ray tracing was off for this game, but I don't think it's worth enabling in any supported title. Honestly, I'm of the opinion that RT is best used with higher end RTX cards and not much else. I can never justify the performance loss, but it's entirely up to you. I'd rather play at native resolution as well, though we are starting to see more and more games with FSR, which is nice, and will no doubt help more in the future when this hardware starts to age a little bit. Elden Ring is capped at 60 FPS by default and there are no problems hitting that at high here. I've disabled motion blur and depth of field once again, and I'm not sure why I specify that because I do the same with all games. Sometimes I reduce the grass quality to medium, but I left it at high here to see if and how the frame rate was affected, but there weren't any serious issues with the FPS or the frame times. Frame times are of course just as important as frame rates when it comes to measuring performance, as it gives us a much more in-depth story as to the performance of each tested title. It's been a while since we've benchmarked Apex Legends, but this runs absolutely fine at 1080p with the highest settings, apart from textures which were set to very high. Spot shadows were also disabled. I'm not sure how much of a difference this makes, but the spot shadow option according to the in-game menu is very demanding, so I left it turned off. Normally the frame rate is capped to 144, but it can be set to unlimited using Steam launch commands before starting. This helped improve the average and also made the stutter I was experiencing beforehand go away. I remember when Deathloop came out and it made my PC weep. It is quite an intensive title, but it does have FSR if you want to use it. The Ryzen 9 is hitting the low 70s in terms of temperature, but just like with the rest of the tests, the 6600M is staying cooler, hitting the low 60s. These temperatures are certainly acceptable in my opinion, and I can imagine the CPU temperature especially would get way hotter in the traditional laptop casing you'd normally find it in. Mafia Definitive Edition is to me one of the best remakes, both as far as the game itself and the visuals are concerned. I still find myself playing it every so often, and with this system that won't be a problem, thanks to the solid average at the highest settings. The graphics look great here, and I think that will be the case for a very long time. I do wonder if Fortnite would have been better with DX12. All I know is that it stutters for a while regardless of the API or the system that I play it on. That said, the game does and did even itself out performance wise as we progressed, and this snippet of gameplay was taken from pretty early on. There are a few more dips and drops here than what you'll experience for the majority of an online match. Overall, the Minisforum HX90G is a great little PC. It is always worth considering how much an equivalent desktop system would cost you to build, or how much other equally as powerful laptops would cost you, especially if you don't mind a bit of used market shopping. That said, the Ryzen 9 and 6600M combo found in this thing, and found brand new, will be ideal for anyone who wants to play games but doesn't have too much space on their desk, or maybe someone who's a little more concerned with power consumption these days. There is definitely a market for these little machines, and it's one that I feel is going to continue growing, while the machines themselves actually get smaller in size. Thank you very much for watching then. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't. Let me know what you think of this machine and mini PCs in general down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already and you want to, of course, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one, when we'll be taking a look at a broken graphics card I probably shouldn't have bought but did anyway. Thank you, and I'll see you then.